Hey guys, welcome back to the ocean. As always, I'm Theory Chum, and this is Chum. For today's video, we're going to be making quite a bit of ocean and water references. So we're going to have Chum here as a visual cue. He's going to get some screen time for the first time in a while. Hey! Because today we're going to dive into something weird. Not just Five Nights at Freddy's weird, not just ScottGames weird. I mean the kind of weird where two completely different narrative stories start using the same language, the same imagery, the same machine logic, the same logic with its memories, and the same idea of artificial worlds being created inside of a system. Today we're going to be talking about FNAF and FNAFFERMOON, another one of ScottGames games. And the main idea is simple. What if FNAFFERMOON gives us a blueprint for understanding how the MXES works on the inside? Because I believe FNAFFERMOON is the same system. I believe FNAFFERMOON is inside of the MXES. The MXES being a machine that generates life and realities with a program that gets corrupted, while all the time the people inside of that world think that it's real. You even get instances where memories start bleeding through where they shouldn't. Go ahead and grab your diving gear. I don't know why that was so hard to say, because this one goes deep. Like, there's another glitch tunnel inside of another glitch tunnel kind of deep, going like 4th layer. So, in Secret of the Mimic, we get a huge piece of information. F10 and 4 design something called Cradle. The message says, "Edwin, please talk to me. We need to stop it together. Here are the blueprints for Cradle." Paraphrasing, it can keep keep people safe and provide boundaries for M2. It's a type of computer and it's bigger than anything you've done before. That line matters because Cradle is not described like a normal machine. It's described as a system that can hold, contain, and protect something. This lines up with the bigger MXES idea. It's a machine that stores, processes, and recreates memories as consciousnesses into new realities. So instead of just looking at the MXES and thinking, oh, that's a computer program system made to trap the MXES or trap the mimic, we need to look at it as a system that can create boundaries around memories. Like a digital aquarium. The fish inside may think that they're swimming out in the everlasting ocean because they're not aware that the sides are glass. Their ocean has glass walls. Before we get into the next part, we need to take a moment to talk about feedback loops. A feedback loop is pretty simple. It's whenever something is fed, it outputs, and then it receives the same output back as its input. Now, to give the most famous feedback loop ever, the water cycle. Water comes down from the clouds as rain, hits lakes, things like that. It gets absorbed, and then it evaporates, and then water goes back up. Water is the output, water is the input. But every time that water goes down, it's not the exact same water coming up because that water is landing in a different place at a different time. It's hitting different germs, different bacteria, different particles through the air, and then it's evaporating, mixing in with other water particles around it as it's going back up into the atmosphere. That's going to be important later. But for right now, we need to understand about feedback loops. A feedback loop is something that's able to sustain itself by putting something out, and then what it puts out is able to be taken back in, and it's able to be a cycle, like the water cycle. We get a lot of evidence of feedback loops. Into the Pit is one of them. Ultimate Custom Night is one of them. But I actually think that one of the strongest pieces of evidence for the feedback loop is one of the most debated papers in Secret of the... Well, it's a number of papers, 4 pages, in Secret of the Mimic, talking about, of course, the deja vu and the memory error notes found near Sleepytime Moon. The note says, paraphrasing, "I had a strange sensation yesterday. It was like deja vu. Like certain events had happened 5 or 6 times before, but then the sensation was gone, and I got back to work." FNAF itself is giving us direct evidence of a repeated experience. Someone or something inside of Murray's Costume Manor feels the same events have already happened multiple times. That's a feedback loop language. The event happens, it goes back, and it occurs again. The event occurs again. The event occurs again. It's not I feel weird or I had a dream. It says specifically that the events feel like they happened 5 or 6 times before. So, sticking on the FNAF side of this theory right now, that gives us our major first clue. Something here, in some aspect, something, we're going to get to what that something is, but just for where we're at right now, something is repeating, something is looping, and the people inside of the loop almost notice it before snapping back into living normal existence. That's exactly how a controlled system would behave, right? So, in the controlled system, you have the aquarium. You have a shark that's swimming, right? It starts to notice the tank wall. But whenever it starts to notice the tank wall, the system shifts, and boom, it doesn't notice it anymore. And the shark just swims away, unaware that it just almost saw the edge of the tank, unaware that anything actually happened. And it just goes away just like normal. Here, that is the controlled system fixing itself. That's what's going on. Which leads us into the memory error report note of that. So, we get memory error detail report. We were expecting there were complications. Consciousness was lost for an undetermined time. Once I woke, we were all together and happy. A family, but something was different. I felt wrong somehow. Was I me? I would never sleep again. Corrupted file suspected. Please advise. This is massive. This note is not just about a memory error. It's about an identity error. Let's go back to that line. I felt wrong somehow. Was I me? So what's happening here is that the system went down for an undetermined time. Consciousness was lost for an undetermined time. The system restored itself. Once I awoke, we were all together and happy, but the restored version did not match the expected self. So the consciousness is interrupted. The system restores something. The restored thing comes back wrong. It's corrupted restoration. Now, this also matters because of the Fiona Murray connection in Tales from the Pizzaplex. In the novel continuity, in Tales from the Pizzaplex, Fiona dies during childbirth in the Mimic. But Secret of the Mimic and the Mimic and MXES are different continuities. So when the memory error note seems to echo childbirth complications, lost consciousness, finding the family again, wrong identity, corrupted memory, it feels like a memory that should not belong cleanly to this timeline. It means that the system may be pulling memories from different branches of digital realities that it's creating. Like, the MXES is not just storing one reality. It's not just storing Tales from the Pizzaplex. It's storing Tales, Frights, The Silver Eyes, FNAFFERMOON, other ScottGames. It's storing emotional data, narrating that data, and using trauma data across as many possible things that it can reuse it in. And this gets us to the many worlds interpretation. This is also mentioned in, I think, in one of the books. I'll have it on screen here. Shout out to the GOAT ClavisKey who showed me this in Nervous's Discord, and shout out to She's Always Nervous, who's an amazing creator. Her OM Doofus video is the Nexus beginning focal point for me even looking into FNAFFERMOON. So shout out to those two for sure. Thank you guys. But whenever we talk about the many worlds interpretation, we're not talking about the overcomplicated physics aspect of it, and that's what I'm going to show it and simplify it today. In simple terms, imagine every possible version of a story is a different current in an ocean. To the things that live within that story, they're in that current. They swim in only that current. But the MXES is the entire ocean itself, and it can pick between currents it could take water out of different currents at a time and make an entirely new current of water. The mini world's interpretation is usually the idea that when different outcomes are possible, reality branches. One outcome happens in one world, another outcome happens in another world. And for this theory, we're not saying that universes are actually being created in the real world. I'm trying to say that these universes are digital realities being created by the MXES. And that's how FNAF uses the mini worlds interpretation in its own narrative way. There's multiple versions of the same events, multiple continuities, multiple outcomes. And the MXES is creating the digital realities using pieces from each of those possible worlds to make new realities and new realities. That goes back into the feedback loop. Let's take it for instance, right? In here, Fiona dies from childbirth. That event of Fiona dying from childbirth would then go right back through that grief, that experience that the people are living within the story is going to hit the MXES again, and it's going to feed back and create yet another story. This explains why something can feel like it happened before, like the deja vu note. Why someone can remember something that doesn't belong there, why the file can recognize that it's wrong, and why these same emotional patterns between FNAF and other games keep popping up with ScottGames in general. So let's talk about FNAFFERMOON. FNAFFERMOON is a game created by Scott Cawthon about, I want to say it's 2008, I'll have it up on screen. I believe 6 years before FNAF came out. FNAFFERMOON is a game about silence. A little lizard guy who, I don't want, turns out the FNAFFERMOON is a machine that generates realities just like the MXES. And that machine has a program called Cosmos. Silence is how Cosmos is trying to come back into the real world and have a physical body. That way it can have an actual life. So, whenever we talk about FNAFFERMOON, FNAFFERMOON constantly brings up the fact that the FNAFFERMOON inside the game FNAFFERMOON is a world created by a machine. It says Cosmos was formed to give substance to which has none. The FNAFFERMOON is a machine. Cosmos is the program. Like MXES is M1, FNAFFERMOON and Cosmos. They're parallels. The program eventually takes form in FNAFFERMOON. And FNAF, we are also dealing with programs that stop behaving like simple programs. The Mimic starts as a program. M1 copies behavior. That copying becomes more and more risky over time, and then it starts acting with patterns that resemble like it has free will of its own, making it appear almost real, like it's almost the actual person. FNAFFERMOON describes the same kind of structure. A machine creates a program, the program starts influencing reality, the program becomes more than just code, and that is why this connection is mattering, right? Because the FNAFFERMOON is giving us a model for how Cawthon wrote the artificial systems within FNAF. The machine, then the program, then the reality distortion, and then wanting to physically embody something. God, David. So one line I'm going to have up here says that after the FNAFFERMOON crash, the program took the form of the creatures it had created and maintained. The FNAFFERMOON gave itself a body. That body exists in the physical world and can be killed and remade. Let's go back over that. The FNAFFERMOON, the MXES, gave itself a body. The M1 program and the Mimic endoskeleton wrote its own code in the Mimic story. The body exists outside of FNAFFERMOON in what's called the physical world, and that body can be killed and remade, be put back together, like whenever the Mimic was destroyed and put back together by Edwin. Now, FNAF also constantly plays with something non-physical needing a solid surface. Remnant, agony is the intangible, metal is the tangible. That's a pretty solid one. Glitch Trap needed an actual program and hardware to be able to work, like the VR headset. Ghosts, spirits in FNAF needed animatronics. F10 and 4 designing Cradle connects to that same idea. It's a system that has a structure, a container for a mind, That's to be a boundary for what's inside of it. It's trying to contain that experience. And that's what they actually experience where you put David in at the end of Secret of the Mimic, and then the mimic starts acting like David. Now let's talk about Iffer. Iffer is the FNAFFERMOON equivalent of Agony from Five Nights at Freddy's. It has the power to alter reality itself by willing things not by what someone needs, but by what someone expects, what their intent is, what their will is, what they think is going to happen. And that's huge because in FNAF, that emotional energy is also a thing. Agony matters because it's embedded with memory. Then you got fear, you got intent, like whenever Jake swung the bat of intent in Fazbear Frights. Whenever Iffer changes reality based on perception, we see that Into the Pit with the MCI changing the Agony scape into the 1985 Freddy Fazbear Pizza location. And it's not doing this as normal, some kind of spooky dooky supernatural magic. It's people's emotional data affecting the MXES, which is having an effect in that world. We actually have FNAF's emotional ecosystem for negative agony inside of FNAFFERMOON. It's an entire desert. Denandis says that the wasteland is a land of fear and memory. It's a place of regret and anger. Fear, memory, regret, anger, those are the cornerstones to Five Nights at Freddy's. Those aren't just background themes either. Those are forces of nature. They are forces of human nature. They're emotion. They are shaping what the system is creating. So Iffer is giving us a language there for what FNAF has been showing us later on down the road. The emotion can become the structure, a memory can become an environment, and then trauma can become a monster. Like the Yellow Rabbit and Into the Pit, the game, all of them. Now we bring in FNAF World. FNAF World gives us subtunnels, glitched objects with hidden layers in between them. And then we get a warning not to go too many glitches down. That the idea that one glitched object can contain another glitched object, that is literally a layered reality system. You go beneath one layer, then another, and eventually risk not being able to get back up. This matches what I'm saying pretty well. It is a world inside of a world, a system inside of a system, one layer of memory under another layer of memory, right? So think if you were to think if you were Chum, right? And we're swimming in the ocean. You hit the ocean floor, your face hits the ocean floor, just to find out there's an entire other ocean underneath it. And so you do the same thing again. You swim down to the bottom, you hit the floor, and then you go through the floor, and you see there's another entire ocean right under that. That's how it's layered here. You go from one glitch into the next, FNAF World also tells us, nothing here is as it seems, the world beneath the surface world. Monsters are misguided effects of whatever happened on the flip side. We're going to bring back the feedback loop, because whatever is happening in the flip side is feeding information back into the MXES, and it is now looping it into FNAF World. It's looping it into its creation. And that's the exact kind of language we're looking at here. If the surface world is not the whole truth, then those monsters are not just random enemies. They are, as it says, they're side effects, they're symptoms. They're what happens when something deeper in the system breaks. Something's going wrong, so it's bleeding. Just like the memory error whenever it was bleeding with Fiona and she was seeing the complications at childbirth with the Secret of the Mimic note. This also mirrors a concept that we're given in FNAFFERMOON. We're told from a creature that strangely resembles a sun, and yes, there is one that is also a moon, that the FNAFFERMOON's program, whenever it got corrupted, it created harsh life, monsters, and imbalance. So corruption ended up creating these monsters and stuff like that, just like something happened on the flip side. So these monsters aren't just monsters. They're error messages, but with like little katanas that they pull off their back and try to cut you in half with. So let's go back to the feedback loop and try to put it more together in a package deal now that I've gone over through a lot. The strongest evidence outside of Into the Pit is going to be the deja vu note from Secret of the Mimic. Events feel like they happened 5 or 6 times before. That is a machine experiencing something multiple times. Because remember, it gives us a memory error and a detail report. Consciousness was lost. The restored self felt wrong. The file was suspected to be corrupted. The strongest structural evidence is FNAF World. You have subtunnels, glitched objects. They literally have layered realities, hidden systems underneath the visible world. If you haven't watched She's Always Nervous's theory on OM Doofus, I highly suggest you do. But even then, she draws a connection between Doofus being Old Man Consequences and these universe and these places all having some kind of connection. Just as she shows in that video, which I got the inspiration to look at FNAFFERMOON, she shows K2 and how they talk about rebuilding people. They show King Doof, who is supposed to be like the king version of Doofus. So this strong comparison here, the MXES and the FNAFFERMOON, both create life. A program comes out of both of them. The system gets corrupted. The emotions and perceptions alter the reality that is generated from the MXES. And then those worlds become a cycle of fear, memory, regret, and anger. That all points to one thing, that the MXES is creating internal worlds from memory and emotion. Those memories, those scenes of memories are creating these games. They're creating the books. They're creating everything. These worlds loop, and then data from those worlds feed back into the system. But it's broken data, and a little bit at a time, the data degrades. So the system is going to keep rebuilding realities from increasingly corrupted memories. It's going to take a little bit in, and something's going to be off there, and then it's going to make a new world. And then out of that world, they're going to take a little bit in, something different, or the same thing in a more quantitative state is going to be taken away there. So rebuilding from those corrupted memories is the feedback loop. So I'm not saying FNAFFERMOON is literally FNAF, obviously, but it does overlap these systems. It's not the same literal place. I believe FNAFFERMOON is inside of the MXES, and the MXES exists in FNAF, yes, but it's not like you could leave space from a pizzeria, from a Freddy Fazbear pizzeria, and reach FNAFFERMOON or something like that. It's because the machinery is the same. It's the same skeleton, and FNAF comes on later to put the flesh, the wires, the teeth, the claws, all of that on there. So, here is the clean overview of it all. FNAF Secret of the Mimic gives us evidence of repeated events in corrupted memory inside of Murray's Costume Manor. FNAF World gives us structure of layered realities, glitched objects, and subtunnels beneath the visible surface. FNAFFERMOON gives us the machine program model, a system that creates life, creates worlds, becomes corrupted, and allows thought, fear, memory, and expectation to shape reality. Put them all together, and MXES starts looking less like a simple containment device and like a reality engine that's creating all these worlds from the memories that are just constantly looping into it, creating new worlds. Those new worlds create memories, and then those memories create new worlds over and over and over again. But to the people inside of those worlds, inside of the MXES, that's their reality, just as if it was a fish inside of a fish tank. That's the ocean to the fish. It doesn't know any different. So to Silence and Denandus, the MXES is the FNAFFERMOON. But to people who exist in Hurricane, Utah, the real world, it's the MXES. MXES, however it's said. And then to the system, everything is just another world that it's adding to its layers of reality. So, it's been a while since I've released a video. And the last one wasn't even FNAF related. But there's a lot going on. This theory is so much more than just FNAF and FNAFFERMOON. It started with FNAF and FNAFFERMOON, and that's where I got hooked. But then being able to join different communities, talking to people like Phil or Big Al, Clavis, Burb, BirbDoc on Discord. Y'all should go make sure that you go check him out on YouTube. I'm gonna have a link to his behind closed doors video art down there. He's a great artist. Did some great work. But the more I got to talk to people, the more I got to see different things. The more I'm like, hey, this is 4 games, 1 story. And if you want to learn more about that, you got to stay in touch. And that's probably going to be a long way out because MXES Maker Part 3 is taking so long. Like, I'm telling you, I've had to order books, wait for them to get here, buy different books, watch multiple playthroughs, watch the mini games like 9,000 times. And it's been so much work. MXES Maker Part 3 is not done yet, but it is still being worked on and coming. There is a bigger series than even MXES Maker that's come out from MXES Maker because I got that feedback loop coming out myself. Boom, MXES Maker, getting head back in. Boom, FNAFFERMOON. Boom. And then you guys are going to see where I break down one of the most intricate debated quotes again in FNAF. 4 games, 1 story. Thank you guys so much for swimming in the ocean. If you liked the video today, go ahead and swim your finger on over to the subscribe button. Hit like for me. Until next time, you guys keep floating in the ocean. Bye!